What's up, champs? Welcome back to Short Shifts, the twice-weekly check-in on all things fantasy hockey around the NHL. My name is Ben Burnett. Joining me, as always, my pal and yours, Louis Ezekiel. Louis, my friend, how are you doing this fine winter's evening?
I'm doing great. You know, work just called, school is canceled, you don't have to go into your job today. Everything is canceled because Trevor Zegras just set up this Michigan assist goal for Sonny Milano. That's like the craziest thing I've ever seen. It was so awesome. He like lacrossed the puck up behind the net and tossed it out in front. He batted it out of the air. Yeah, no one has to do anything tomorrow. It's all canceled.
I like that you're describing this play right now for me because I do think that there's a sizable population of listeners who haven't seen the goal yet, like our time. But I do think that it's like the level of highlight where every single person who's listening tomorrow will have seen it like on a loop at this point.
Well, yeah, that's the danger, I suppose, of recording after the games have started. But
I don't even mean that to like chastise you. I just mean to say like it just to back you up. Like it's just like that level of it's just an incredible goal.
Yeah, beautiful, a thing of true beauty. Mm-hmm. Mike Legg is proud wherever he is.
Cale Clegg's dad? Is that what I'm talking about? Cale Clegg's dad?
Yeah, Mike Legg.
I've never heard of Mike Legg.
Wow,
Louis, Louis, let's get right into the hockey analysis, and we are going to start in where else but Dallas, where the Bish is back. Ben Bishop, loaned to the Texas Stars for conditioning. I guess he's technically not back, but he is on the ice and going to play a competitive hockey game, presumably, which gives me enough leeway to make that pun. He's been practicing with the Dallas Stars for quite a while, but hasn't played an NHL game since before the pandemic. And this is interesting, I think, in particular, because it's just one more cook in the Dallas kitchen. Louis, I'm wondering, what's your vibe on who is worth holding here, and how do you handle this four-headed monster moving forward?
Well, on the Super Show, you heard Brian and Elon talk about how Rick Bowness did us a solid as long as he sticks to it, and explain that he would, start each of the goalies 2 times.
Each of them? There's 4 of them. They don't have 8 games.
We're talking about Holtby and Ettinger here, who are the goalies who are actually playing at this time. Just being forward thinking, despite Ettinger's play, it does seem like he'll end up being the odd man out. I think it's disappointing, certainly, that he may, miss out on opportunities that he has earned, but he is the guy who can be sent down, without having to make his way through waivers. So that seems like the most likely outcome, once Bishop is eventually there. And Khudobin, I would guess, is someone who could potentially be on the move too. This is all just speculation, obviously. But yeah, if I have to put my guess down here today, I would say that Holtby and Bishop will end up being your 2 goalies at some point here in the season once they're ready to kind of commit in that direction.
So do you think that therefore those guys are holdable, or what's your vibe? Like, are any of those guys rosterable if there are that many cooks in the kitchen?
Yeah, well, it's tough, right? Because I really like Ettinger right now, and he's been quite effective in fantasy, which yeah, it makes this all very complicated. I think this is going to be a lengthy conditioning stint. I was getting myself all excited about Pavel Francouz making a comeback, and I definitely was getting ahead of myself because it seems like he's going to be down on his conditioning stint for quite a while too. So I think you just got to be patient and wait and keep your ear close for the news. The nice thing is I believe that he is still IR eligible, unlike someone like, say, a Tuukka Rask, who would have is NA on Yahoo and would have to be, actually taking up a spot on your roster. So he's someone that you can add if you can stash, if you've got the room and if you think you've got the moves, but really make sure you've got the moves. When I added Francouz, I was feeling very confident about my matchup, and then I had a 85-point swing over the course of 2 days, and it was really brutal. So, just make sure you're really, really confident you've got the space to make a move that could potentially, harm your team. I ended up losing by more than, I would have gotten from a streamer, so I'm going to warm myself by that meager fire.
So the interesting thing here is there are 2 types of conditioning loans. The standard type, which lasts for 14 consecutive days, players sent down, plays in the game, and then sent back up to the NHL. There's also a long-term injured reserve conditioning loan where players can be sent down without having to put their cap back on, or without having to put their salary hit back on the cap, and they can stay down for 6 days or 6 days and 3 games. Either maximum triggers the end of the loan, and the loan is basically to determine a player's fitness to return off of LTIR. I have to assume then that basically Bishop is not long for the AHL, which was kind of my initial guess, just because he's been out for so long. I am actually not interested in any player, in any goalie in Dallas until things settle down, or at least once Bishop is called back up. I like Holtby a lot right now. Ettinger is good in a spot start, but once one of those goaltenders is out in exchange for Bishop, I think all bets are off. To me, it's a stay away situation. There's just too many players involved, but certainly you can hit us up on Twitter or on the Patron-only Discord group and see how we feel once this news progresses. Lewis, why don't you take us over to Florida next?
All right, well, we are very happy, except for those of us who are playing against them this week, to welcome back Barkov and Forsling to the Panthers. Obviously great for them, great news for Florida's goalies, I think, to have a defenseman and a responsible and effective 200-foot forward back in the lineup. It does spell the end of power play one time for Owen Tippett, who got around 50% of the power play time over these last 3 games. Maxime Mammon has held on to a spot on Barkov's line with Verhaeghe, so that might be an interesting guy to watch in kind of the Alexei Protas vein of guys who might touch a puck that is then potted by a superstar or might knock a puck off of a superstar setup. So just a couple guys to kind of keep in mind as interesting streams who are getting good deployment at even strength. But obviously the big news is with Barkov and Forsling back, I think you're going to have, a little bit more effective play in general that'll benefit the goalies. Obviously, it's great for the Barkov owners, not great for Tippett. That's really all I've got to say about that return. Good that he's back on the ice. It's good for hockey.
All right, Lewis, we're going to head to Toronto next, where Mitch Marner has now been officially diagnosed with a shoulder injury, and he will be out for 3 to 4 weeks after colliding with Jake Muzzin at practice. In the meantime, we see Andre Kasha practicing on Power Play 1. We had Jason Spezza on Line 1 last game, but he has now officially been suspended for 6 games after headhunting on Neil Pionk. The Leafs are rolling a top line of Austin Matthews, Michael Bunting, and Wayne Simmons, and they've scored 2 goals tonight, so obviously they're doing something right. On Power Play 1, we're seeing Andre Kasha ascend the ranks finally to getting some nice deployment for the first time in Toronto. Any interest in Simmons or Andre Kasha? And if so, I guess, how would you compare them to a Maxime Mammon?
I think Kasha is a little bit more of a known commodity. I think that Simmons is kind of washed. I don't think he's gotten in on any of these goals that they've been blasting in against Columbus, so not super interested there. I think Kasha of the group is the most interesting. Not getting great even strength deployment, but is up on that top power play, and we've seen how effective that it can be. And if Simmons can't even get in, on all the scoring that they're doing, I don't know, it just doesn't do it for me. Give me Kasha of that group.
I think I'd go Mammon, but I definitely hear you. I think it could go either way between Kasha and Mammon, and I'm way over Wayne Simmons. I do agree with you there. Speaking of that Jets-Leafs fracas, 2-game suspension has been announced for Neil Pionk after he kneed Rasmus Sandin, leaving Sandin injured for several weeks. Unfortunately, I don't think there's much fantasy relevance to get to there. Unfortunately, Pionk is also in concussion protocol following that knee to the head from Jason Spezza. In the meantime, I think it might be Nate Schmidt's season. He's taken over Power Play 1 with Pionk on the shelf. He and Josh Morrissey had both been getting Power Play 2 time beneath Pionk on the depth chart. So it's interesting to see Schmidt take the first step to getting that top deployment. I had the choice between both of them in the cupful today, and I went with Josh Morrissey because he's been shooting more. He's adding a hit and a block per game. I didn't know who to expect on Power Play 1, so I'm a little bit disappointed to see that Schmidt got the first crack at it, but definitely I think that both have some added value with Pionk on the shelf.
Yeah, I kind of like Schmidt. He's been my bottom defender in the keeper that you've set up where we're actually facing off against each other this week. And every time I try to go to drop him, he does something nice. He's got an assist here on Tuesday. And certainly if he's going to move into that power play role, he might be worth hanging on to for at least a little bit longer, since there's going to be at least one more game here where unless things get shaken up, if they don't have a lot of success, he'll probably remain in that position. And obviously the injury may keep Pionk out for longer than the suspension itself.
All right, Lewis, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into the streaks portion of the show. You're listening to Short Shifts. Lewis, the temperatures outside have been dropping, which means NHL season is well underway. And there's absolutely no need to exhaust yourself looking all over the internet, scouring for tickets to see your favorite hockey team play. And that's because TickPick, that's TickPick, is the original no-fee ticket site, and the only one you'll need as your go-to for all tickets for NHL hockey, concerts, NFL, NBA, and more. Lewis, it's been a long time since I've been able to go see a live NHL game because of the pandemic, and I live on the East Coast now where there is not an NHL team, but my dad and I have recently been talking about going to Toronto or Montreal to catch a game, and I think that we're actually looking at going to see the Leafs face off against Tampa later on this season. Two NHL teams who have been incredible lately, and I cannot wait to go to tickpick.com to get my tickets. TickPick got rid of all those awful service fees that the other ticket sites charge, which lets them guarantee the best prices on all of their NHL hockey tickets. Don't believe it? If you can find better prices for the same seats on another ticket site, TickPick will give you 110% of the difference in the purchase price. Visit TickPick today at tickpick.com/Carlson. Welcome back to Short Shifts. Lewis, I'm going to pose you a question to start off our streak section tonight. And this question came from cousin Dave Betton of the Stream Scheme on our patron-only Discord group. Dave asks, who would you drop first? Cold Streak Tyler Seguin or Cold Streak Taylor Hall?
The classic Taylor versus Tyler debate that we all knew back in 2017 we would be having here in 2021. It's just unfortunate. I thought about this. I want to give Dave, a good answer because he provides us with so much excellent content. I really think after looking at this, this is no fun to decide, cause really, why not both, right? Porque no los dos. I think I'd prefer to keep Seguin over Hall. They both have very underwhelming even strength lineups. And honestly, Seguin's have been worse, but Seguin has been seeing significant time on the power play with Ben and Guryanov. I can't imagine that would be considered the top power play since it's not where Pavelski and Roope Hintz and Jason Robertson are playing, but it is the only power play unit to score in the last 3 games. Hall is going to be demoted with Marchand's return from suspension and did nothing with the prime deployment he did get. Seguin hasn't seen that kind of deployment in quite a while now. So sort of the way I'm thinking about it, and to quote D. Reynolds from Always Sunny in Philadelphia, nobody ever wins those lottery ticket scratchers, right? But as long as you don't scratch it, then you're not a loser. In fact, you're a winner, potentially. So we've seen Hall play terribly with top deployment recently, but not Seguin. So he's not a loser. He's a winner, potentially. I like that he could possibly work his way. If he were to work his way up the lineup, he could actually see some productive results, while Hall did work his way up the lineup and hasn't. So give me Seguin over Hall in this battle of former stars who, were just anxious to possibly get rid of both of them.
I mean, do you see any reason to think that Seguin could move up the lineup? I'm feeling pretty confident that the Stars feel good about their top line over there.
Sure, but, then what are, what's the debate over exactly? Like somebody with bad deployment who is not producing and someone with maybe middling deployment who is, was incapable of producing even when things were going well for him.
Yeah, I think the answer is neither. Or both, rather. Drop them both at the same time.
All right. Yeah, fair enough. There you go, Dave.
No, I would.
The answer you were hoping for.
I mean, to not just be cute with it, I would defer to the schedule, and obviously because nothing's ever easy, they have identical schedules this week, Dallas and Boston. So I would look ahead, and it appears that Boston has 4 games next week, which seems impossible based on how the schedule has been laid out for Boston so far. It seems like it might have been illegal for the league to have scheduled them for more than 3 games in a single week. But I would probably drop Seguin first. I think that there's nothing to be excited about there. I don't have much more hope for Hall, but that's kind of where we're left off here. Lewis, why don't you take us at least to a spot where we can feel good about one of these players that we're talking about?
I was going to say, let's brighten up our day a little bit here. I want to talk about a hot streak for Jeff Carter, 32% owned on or rostered on Yahoo. He's got 5 points in the last 5 games, including 3 goals on 13 shots. This was a guy who I thought would probably take a step back after Crosby's return. The rust injury has let him hang out on power play 1, although he's actually doing most of his damage at even strength. He's played 18 plus minutes in 4 of the last 5, and in the 5th, he scored twice in a blowout, so there was no real need for him to get a whole bunch of time out there. He's got nice deployment, especially while Rust remains sidelined. This is somebody that would be anxious to get in my lineup. The only issue with him really is that he's center-only eligibility, so if you do have some winger eligibility concerns, just make sure you can fit him in your lineup before you rush out to add him. But this is a guy who, pretty minimal ownership and someone that I would really like to get on my roster.
Yes, if you listened to the Keeping Karlsson mega show last week, then you know that Carter was on the list of halves on Pittsburgh. So I concur with you here, Lewis. I think that he's a player worth rostering. I'm going to talk about a player who I'm a little bit more bearish on, and that is Andre Burakovsky over in Colorado. This season started off like a dream, a near point per game pace with 14 in his first 15 games this year for Andre Burakovsky, but now he has just 1 goal in his last 6 games played. It's starting to affect his Yahoo rostered percentage as well, though he is still rostered in 60% of leagues. But what worries me about Burakovsky isn't a change in deployment that we've seen. He's usually been a line 2 power play 2 guy in Colorado. And that's why, to see that same deployment this year, it doesn't really freak me out, even if his full season pace is a bit down from his usual 60-point pace. But we thought he might take over for Donskoy on Power Play 1 preseason. That hasn't been the case and this is the requisite short shifts Nazem Kadri mentioned. Nazem Kadri has obviously filled that Power Play 1 role with aplomb. Burakovsky should be fine, but he's always been this ride him while he's hot, drop him when he's not type fantasy asset. And I don't think he's a must-hold in most leagues, especially 10 or 12 teamers. But Colorado also has Streamagami this week. They play Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. And like you mentioned, it's a super tough week for streamers with the super heavy Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday schedule. I'm probably going to give him till the end of this week to find his footing and then giving up if things don't turn around.
All right, well, let's head on over to St. Louis, where we've got another interesting hot streak that I want to take a look at, and that is Ivan Barbashev. This is a guy who has triple forward eligibility on Yahoo, 5 points over his last 5 games, and I can actually update that to at least 6 points over his last 6 games as he potted an assist here on Tuesday. That game obviously is still in progress, so there's a possibility of more to come, or who knows, he'll be injured by the next time we talk about him. Hopefully not. I feel like I just cursed him. Bad move. He's seen at least 17 minutes a night over this 5-game span and over 50% of the power play time on ice in 3 of those games. His center, Rob Thomas, is busted. And Rob, if you're gone, it looks like he'll line up with Oscar Sundqvist and Logan Brown on line 3 until Thomas is back to good. Barbashev's power play deployment with Saad, Buchnevich, and Thomas pre-injury, along with Scotty Prunes on the blue line, has 3 power play goals in the last 3 games, while the nominal top power play hasn't had any. Besides Thomas's injury, Barbashev's shooting also has me somewhat concerned. Those 4 goals in the last 5 games have come on 7 shots, and obviously there's no way he keeps that up, much less the 21% shooting he's had on the season. But still, with 3 games remaining after Tuesday night, he might be getting the minutes on power play that would make him a useful streamer for the remainder of the week and potentially beyond.
All right, Lewis, that is all the time that we have for tonight's episode. From myself, Ben Burnett, thank you so much for listening. Why don't you sign us on out of here?
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We very much appreciate you downloading and listening to our show, maybe even leaving us a nice review. We've really enjoyed the Twitter interactions over the last couple of days too. So please be sure to give us a follow and talk to us at Short Shifts KK, as well as Brian and Elon at Keeping Carlson, Dave Betton of Stream Scheme at NHL Stream Scheme. Also recommend you follow at Game Day Lines, at Game Day Goalies, and at Game Day News. That will help make sure that you are on the cutting edge of everything that is going on in the fantasy world and help you dominate your league. Please visit the great sites where we research our episodes with at Yahoo, Frozen Tools, Natural, Stat Trick, and Cupful.com. Our intro and outro music was created by Pat Roach. And until we see you next time, play smart and keep your shifts short.